Good afternoon. Thrilled to be back at Sustainability Live. Are we all good? Yeah. Having a good day? Yeah. Is lunch afterwards? Yeah. All hungry? Okay, better get going then. No, thrilled to be here. Adam Elman. I lead our sustainability work at Google across Europe, Middle East, and Africa region. Here to talk to you today about how we're building innovative technology for a more sustainable world. So let's get started. Now, sustainability has been a core value at Google ever since the business was founded. And the question of how we use our technology for climate action has only got more urgent. The climate crisis is humanity's greatest challenge, and it affects everyone. And at Google, we feel we have a responsibility to lead the change in two ways: by making information accessible and by driving forward innovation. So, grounded in our mission, we're making information available through our platforms and our tools that billions of people access every day, helping them to make better choices that are positive for the planet. And through our deep legacy in research and our breakthrough innovations in technology such as AI, artificial intelligence, we're finding new ways to make that information available and even more powerful tools to help in the fight against climate change. And the reason I'm excited about it, and the reason I came to work at Google, is I fundamentally believe that technology has a huge role to play in the net zero future that we all want and we all need. And there's a lot of research that backs this up. I'm going to give you some stats for some research that we commissioned from Implement Consulting last year that specifically looked at the EU's net zero 2050 target. And the research shows that 20 to 25% of the decarbonisation required will require some form of digital enablement. And there are four industries in particular, so transport, buildings, manufacturing, and agriculture, where that is, the opportunity is really significant. And those four sectors account for over 2/3 of the EU's emissions. And what's really interesting as well, the research shows that those economies which are decarbonising the quickest are also the most digitised. So there's a really strong correlation there. Now, as I mentioned, Google has been focused on this for a long time. We're actually in our third decade of climate action. And we think about our work in three different buckets. And our first bucket is what we call empowering individuals. And people are turning to Google and searching for answers every day about how they can live more sustainably. And we really want to provide them the information and the context they need to make those more sustainable choices to help the planet. Our second focus area is we call working together, and that's with our partners. And that could be governments, it could be cities, it could be NGOs, it could be corporations. But we're helping them with our technology, giving them the information they need to help them with their decarbonisation, but also with transformational technology to enable that journey. And our third pillar is operating sustainably, because we know sustainability has to start at home. We have to get our own house in order. And we're really focused on how we can make sure our operations are sustainable. And building on our legacy of leadership in climate action and clean energy, we've set big ambitious goals, and we're trying to drive transformational change towards that net zero future. So today, I'm going to spend a bit of time talking through each of those pillars, just to give you a flavour and some of the examples of the work that we're involved with. So starting with how we empower individuals. Now, Google Maps. Google Maps has actually been helping people for a long time travel more sustainably. We've shown you how you can walk somewhere. We've given you information on cycle routes. We've given you information on public transport and what options are available to you. And in more recent years, we've added new information such as electric vehicle charging points or scooter and bike hiring opportunities. And we're always looking at ways that we can enhance this. And as I say, we're seeing increased searches from individuals and breakout searches on terms like electrification, solar panels, thrifting, traveling sustainably. So we've got this really opportunity to meet that need. And last year, we launched fuel-efficient routing in Google Maps. Now, fuel-efficient routing is aimed at drivers. It uses AI technology and takes in many, many different data sources and surfaces up the most fuel-efficient route if it's not already the quickest route. So if you look up a route, it might say there's a better option here. It may be 2 minutes slower, but might save you 15% on fuel or battery consumption. So it's helping people save on energy, it's helping to reduce carbon emissions, and it's helping to reduce costs. We rolled this out in the US in 2021 in Canada. Last year we brought it to Europe and to Egypt. And at the end of last year, we calculated it saved an estimated 1.2 million metric tons of carbon. Put it in perspective, that's the equivalent of taking 250,000 fuel-based cars off the road. So a great example of how this is really helping people on an everyday basis. And we're not just doing it through our digital products, we're doing it through our physical products as well. So if you've heard of the Nest brand, Nest is part of Google, and the Google Nest Learning Thermostat for well over a decade has been helping people save energy in their homes. And it does that through machine learning, looking at patterns, and automatically adjusting heating and cooling depending on, let's say, the environment and the patterns that it's seeing in the house. And since 2011, Nest thermostats have helped save 113 billion kilowatt hours of energy. Again, to put that in perspective, that's twice the electricity use in Portugal last year. And in carbon terms, it's saved an estimated 36 million tons of CO2. So again, another great way where we're helping people who want to make more sustainable choices. A lot of my presentation is about climate mitigation. How can we reduce the impact? But actually, we see an important role for technology and AI when it comes to climate adaptation, and particularly with regards to weather impacts. The example here is flooding, but I could have given you an example on wildfires or other issues as well. Now, flooding is really important. Around 250 million people are impacted by floods every year, often with devastating consequences. And our research team found a way to use AI technology to produce hyperlocal forecasts on when rivers would flood. And we've been rolling that out. And in 2021, we issued 115 million alerts to 23 million people in Asia, Latin America, and Africa, allowing them to take action. But we're always, as I say, looking at seeing how we can expand our technology and how we can improve it. And we were really pleased this year to expand that technology from 20 countries to 80 countries, including here in Europe. And importantly, we were able to change the forecast time from 48 hours out to up to 7 days out. So giving individuals, governments, aid agencies much more time to prepare and take action. And if you're interested, if you just look up Flood Hub, you can find it on Google. You can look up where you live and find out information. So again, real-life example of how this is having an impact helping individuals. Right, moving on to our middle pillar, which, as I say, is about working together. And there are lots of examples I can give, but I'll just give you a flavor. So we have a lot of corporate customers who are on Google Cloud, who have big, their own sustainability ambitions and have big challenges, and come to us to try and work with us to figure out how we can use technology to drive their solutions. To drive solutions towards their goals. One example area is on sustainable sourcing. And actually, Unilever is a great customer of ours that's been using this technology because they've got a big ambition around sourcing deforestation-free palm oil. And they're using our Google Earth engine. Now, Google Earth engine takes satellite data, it takes petabytes worth of geospatial data, and it's planetary scale analytics that allows you really to look at what's happening on the ground in nature around the world. And Unilever's using this technology, mapping out their supply chain, looking at what's happening in those palm oil plantations to make sure that deforestation isn't taking place. And I should say, we've had this technology available to scientists and researchers for many, many years who are using similar technology to analyze what's happening to the planet as part of their research. Another example of how we're helping is in the aviation industry. And actually, this is something that we announced, I think, around 3 weeks ago. So this is all very fresh and very, I find it very exciting. So this is all to do with reducing the global warming potential, global warming impact of contrails. Now, contrails are those white lines that you can often see behind an aeroplane. But actually, they don't always occur. So you'll probably be looking up in the sky next time, but sometimes they occur and sometimes they don't. And those contrails actually account for about 35% of the global warming impact of the aviation industry. So you think it's all fuel, but our 35% is from contrails. And if you read the last IPCC report, it's one of the areas they call out as one of those real focus areas. And our team have been partnering with Breakthrough Energy and American Airlines to test AI to see if we can avoid contrails. So again, it's taking in thousands of different data sources, from flight paths to weather to looking at satellite imagery and working out where contrails have been produced in the past and what were the conditions, and using all that information to issue different flight paths or different information to avoid contrails. Now, earlier this year, this was tested for 6 months, 70 flights, and it showed a 54% reduction in contrails, with just a 2% increase in fuel. Net, a huge, huge benefit. So lots more work to be done here, but we're really excited about the opportunity for this technology to have a real impact in the aviation space. Energy. We do a lot of work in the energy space, helping with that transition away from fossil fuel energy. One of our customers we're working with is Engie, really looking at how we can use AI technology to predict wind. Now, why do we want to predict wind output? Is because actually, as the grids are having to update and reflect the new world of the renewables, there's a lot of challenges with the grids. And actually, by having the predictions, and we give it 36 hours in advance, that allows Engie to understand on an hourly basis when energy can be produced and how they're going to push that onto the grid. So it's really enabling them to scale up their energy distribution, but importantly, it's helping to maintain the grids in a more effective way. Sticking with the energy story, again, this is actually, I think this was possibly last week we announced this. We've launched a new solution called Solar API. So around 60% of the new renewable energy capacity that's expected by 2030 is going to come from solar. And in the residential space, it's actually quite a slow and expensive process in terms of getting solar installation, in terms of getting people out on site to do surveys. Actually accessing the roof can be challenging, getting the right information. And so we're using our technology to actually allow them to do that without actually having to visit the property at all. And using this solution, to say this is aimed primarily at solar marketplaces, solar developers, solar installers, solar designers. We're actually be able to give them all the information as to what size is the building, what size is the rooftop, what pitch is the rooftop. We're able to look at all of the satellite imagery and tell them what the shading is, what the light's going to be on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, what the optimal setup is for that solar array, and a bunch of other information, which means they can get quicker and more accurate information to really enable the scale up of solar, rooftop solar. So we're really excited about the opportunity here. Been testing with a lot of partners. Feedback is fantastic, and that's now been released. Another partner of ours is cities. Cities are really interesting because cities account for around 70% of GHG emissions. And they often have high ambition in terms of wanting to take action on climate, but often lack the tools and the information to know what to do. So a number of years ago, we partnered with a number of organizations, Global Covenant of Mayors, C40, ICLEI, people working in the city space, and we developed a solution called the Environmental Insights Explorer. Now, this is available free to cities around the world. We cover around 42,000 cities, around 7,000 in Europe. And it provides them with information that they can use as part of figuring out what their climate action plans are. So we give them the information on building emissions. We give them information on transport emissions, what transport is traveling around, modes of transport, those sorts of things. We give them information on solar potential. And actually, more recently, we've added a new module around which we call tree canopy, which shows them their tree coverage and where their opportunity is to deploy trees. If you think about the issues of urban heat islands and what have you, there's a real opportunity to increase tree coverage. And cities around the world are using this technology to inform their action plans. So one example is the city of Dublin. Dublin set an ambition increasing cycling, and they've used the transport information to figure out what policy and infrastructure changes they need to make to achieve their goal. And we see lots of other exciting opportunities here. We're currently working on air quality data as well. But again, really giving cities the tools they need to take action. So that's some of the technologies that we're producing to help others. And as I say, there's many more, but we're really excited about the opportunity. But we need to make sure that we're getting our own house in order. And Google, as I say, has been on a journey for a long time here. Back in 2010, we were one of the very first big companies to start investing in renewable energy through power purchase agreements. And by 2017, we were buying enough renewable electricity on an annual basis to match our usage. And we've done so every year since. So we're 100% renewable electricity, which is great. But actually, that doesn't mean that every day in every location we're actually using renewable energy. We have to base on what is available locally at the time, and we don't think that's good enough. So we're shifting to something called 24/7 carbon-free energy, which means we're going to source 100% clean energy locally every hour of every single day. It's a huge shift, but it's the only way we can make sure that grids are being decarbonised equally around the world. And we want to do that by 2030. And alongside that, we have our overarching goal, which is our net zero goal. We're aiming to be net zero by 2030. That's across our Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emissions. So it's a huge, huge challenge. And again, we look at using technology to see how we can go on that journey. And if you take our data centers, which is at the heart of what runs Google Maps or YouTube or search and many of the other things that you will use, we've worked very hard over many years to make sure we're making them as efficient as possible. I've mentioned the work we've done on renewables and continue to do on clean energy, but we also work on efficiency as well. And a Google data center is about 1.5 times more efficient than an average enterprise data center. So by our customers simply coming over to run on Google Cloud, for example, there's a significant benefit in terms of the efficiency we've driven there. And I should say, by the way, for Google Cloud customers, we give them access to carbon reporting, so they can actually see the emissions associated with running on our infrastructure. And through all our work on efficiency as well, we now provide about 3 times more compute power than we did 5 years ago for the same amount of energy. So same amount of energy, 3 times more compute power. So we continue to look at it. And whilst it's great that we are wanting to increase renewable energy and clean energy, it's really important that we make best use of the energy, the clean energy, that's already available today. And one of the ways we do that, again, is using AI. I'm sounding a bit repetitive, sorry. But we do it through something called our Carbon Intelligent platform, load platform. And effectively what we do is we look on a daily basis, we look at what are the jobs and what is our energy use that we know we're going to need for the next day. We also look at what is the clean energy that's going to be produced around grids around the world, and the AI platform automatically load shift jobs around. So it will say, this job can move, we were going to run it here, there's a cleaner grid over there, let's move it to that grid. So we're actually making the best use of the energy that's already on the grid. And again, it's technologies like this will not only help us move forwards, but make best use of that technology and that energy that we have here today. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour into some of the work we're doing and how we really see the opportunity for technology in advancing climate change. What I would say is it's like everything in the world of sustainability. It's great we've got these technology, but we're only going to move at the pace and the speed we need if we can work together. So thanks for your time, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Adam. If there are any questions, if you want to put a hand up, there's a lot shooting up here. Daisy, you pick. I'm going to ask a question in the meantime. Interesting, you were talking about sourcing local renewables by 2030.
Yep.
And obviously the region you look at after, EMEA, there are some clear wins, I'd say, like, for instance, solar in the Middle East. Which countries are the most challenging when it comes to that, in terms of that reliable source of renewables?
Yeah, I think what I would say is 2 things. I think there's a regional piece in there, and there are regions like Asia which are more challenging, both in terms of the policy there. And we spend, I've spoken a lot about technology. I could have done another 20 minutes on energy policy, for example. But Asia's quite challenging. But I think it's not just about the geography, it's also about the different technologies. So we're investing heavily in technologies such as battery storage, new types of renewable geothermal, for example. So I think it's a mix of all of the different pieces that come together. It's not just how do we get more onto the grid. I've given you one example on load shifting, but there are lots of different technologies we need to look at so that, because we're not going to get we're not going to be able to deploy the same amount or the same types of renewables everywhere for obvious reasons. So it's a sort of mixed approach to how we get there.
Yeah, but I suppose my question was, if you're sourcing it locally,
Yep.
how local is local? Are you talking country or are you talking by region?
Actual local grid. So, for example, we wouldn't say, we bought in Sweden, that can count for France. It's got to be actually on the local grid. And that's the point. We see around the world, grids are not decarbonising equally, to your point. There are parts of the world where renewables are coming on board, not fast enough, but are really coming on board, and there are other parts of the world where it's not. So that annual matching just isn't enough to get us to where we need to be, which is why we need to move to 24/7 carbon-free.
Okay, really interesting. So who got the lucky microphone? Here we go. If you can start by saying your name and where you're from, please.
Hi, Adam. I'm Edward from the Jospe Coaching. We've heard wonderful presentations from Meta, AWS, Microsoft, and yourselves. And my question is, you said we need to work together. And how are you and these other organizations working together to solve this crisis?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. I should note ex-Amazon as well, so no issue there. But no, I think we work very closely together on many of these topics, and there are many groups that we're part of. Certainly within the EU, there's a EU data center coalition, which many of those are on, and there are many working groups on 24/7 carbon-free energy. Actually, to illustrate that point, we've always said if we get to 2030 and we've achieved 24/7 carbon-free, but no one else has, we failed, because as big as Google is, we're still a dot amongst everyone else. So we actually created something with the UN called the UN 24/7 Compact. Microsoft have signed up, and various others have signed up. So I think we're always keen to work with others. If we really want to scale up these solutions, it's going to require everyone working together, whether that's in the same sectors, cross sectors, private, NGOs, whatever it may be. So yeah, we're always keen to work with others.
Encouraging.
Okay, can we get another question here? Gentleman just down at the front row, and then we'll have the lady in the middle on row 3 as well, please. Thank you.
Hi, Adam. My name's Ivor Tucker from Generation C. We work with linking the carbon stories of companies like yours with schools. One of the issues that you've highlighted, obviously, is the technology is going to require skills. And there are lots of you talk about a lack of green skills, lack of digital skills. So what is Google doing to try and engage with schools, apart from the education resources that you provide, but actually getting kids to understand the kind of skills that they will need to develop to be able to fill all the jobs that are coming through from companies like yours? Yeah,
a great question. What I would say is, I think Google as a business does a lot in the education space, and working very closely with all parts of all levels of education. When it comes specifically to the green skills space, we've got pockets of things I could talk to. If I'm being honest, I think we need to do a lot more. Both in terms of distinct, but also embedding it in more general skills. If come into AI, you can use AI for sustainability or whatever it may be. So I think the honest answer is I could talk to you some examples, but I think we need to do a lot more. We know there are huge skill gaps, and if we really again want to get to the net zero future we're going to need to fill those gaps.
Okay, could you just pass the microphone over your shoulder, please? That's probably the quickest way of doing it. Thank you. Just state your name and where you're from.
Hi, Adam. Thanks for that. Really interesting. Particularly to hear the new technology stories. Sophie Brooks, I run Fit for Purpose, we're a sustainability consultancy. I was also listening to the Microsoft interview yesterday morning, and was interested to hear about how they're getting on with their 2030 footprint challenge. So you outlined that you have your 2030 net zero scopes 1, 2, and 3. In Microsoft's case, they were clear that because of the growth in the market and their own growth, they've only actually been able to achieve 0.5% reduction, and they're struggling to see where that significant 10% per year is coming from. I just wondered if you could give us an update on how you're actually tracking against the goals that Google.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And much like Microsoft, we publish an environment report with all of the numbers and what have you. I mean, it is a challenge. I mean, it's particularly a challenge when you're a growth business. That's not an excuse. It's just a challenge we have to work through. So I'll come to sort of the carbon in a minute, but on the renewables, we're on clean energy. We're now at 64%. So we've got very big plans in place to continue to move that forwards. Do we have a straight answer to how we're going to get to 100% yet? No. And that's why we need to innovate and work with others and advance policy and what have you. On our carbon emissions are about flat. If you look at 2022, which we've just published, versus previous year, slightly down. Obviously, a huge amount of growth in there. So, we are improving, but we're not getting those reductions that we need. If I'm honest, we always knew it wasn't going to be a linear path. Many of the things that we have invested in take several years to come on board. If we take energy, which is a big part of that, it takes 2, 3, 4 years to build, these very big wind turbines and solar fields and what have you. So we have clear sort of internally transition plans and as to how we're going to get there, but it's not a linear path. None of us are happy about it. We all want to go faster, but we're clear on the actions we need to take. But like everyone, I would be lying if I stood up here and said we've got the answers to everything, right? There are technology gaps, there are policy gaps, there's lots of challenges within that, and that's why partnerships for us are so key. We spoke about sort of partnering within the sector, but it's only really working together that we're going to unlock some of these big levers we need to drive those transformational changes or system level changes. And so, we spend a lot of our time working with partners, and so much of the success we've had has been working with partners. So, making good progress, needs to do a lot more. We're very focused on it. Watch this space.
Thank you.
Good place to leave it there. We'll have to leave it, I'm afraid. You might be able to catch Adam if you have more questions, if you're lucky. But that's all for now. Thank you so much. Great session again, Adam. Thank you.